Hey everyone, this is Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, podcast where I'm talking to industry leaders about what's changing in real estate. I'm here with Jun Choo, Chief Operating Officer of Zillow. Hi, Jun.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you.
It's great to have you back in Boulder again.
Yeah, it's been what, like 6 years, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Oh my gosh,
I
yeah,
can't believe
it was. It was
yeah.
pre-pandemic when you were here to my class last time. So excited to have you back, and we'll jump in and talk to the students in a bit. But yeah, before that, wanted to have a conversation. I'm sure the top thing on everybody's mind listening to this right now is, how do you start your day?
How do I start my day?
Yes.
Well, I usually start my day by tripping over my dog because he picks the most inconvenient place to sleep in my bedroom at all times. But I work from home, so Zillow is a cloud HQ work from home. So my office is downstairs from my bedroom, and what I typically do is go downstairs, make some coffee, make the kids lunches, see them out the door. And then, hop on to Zoom meetings around 8 a.m. I don't have a lot of time usually for anything other than that because I like to sleep as much as I can. But that is basically how I start my day. I'm not one of these people who gets up at 4 a.m. and gets in a workout before work or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. Just jump right in.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working from home more regularly, I needed these like little transition periods to go from kind of home to work. Do you have any transition routine that you go through, or do you just get in front of the computer?
I used to have to, I remember in the early days of the pandemic, I used to have to walk out the front door and come back in to reset myself. I think that lasted for maybe a little less than a year. And now it's more of just like a mindset shift. It's just like I sit in the chair and then I'm at work. So yeah, I used to have to do some of those things. I feel like now it's become such old habit that kind of just happens.
Yeah. All right. So before we hit record, we were talking about what to talk about.
Yeah.
And what I like to do in this podcast is talk about learnings, really pull out insights out of folks. So can you think of an example you've had in your career or at Zillow where you've launched something and it didn't go as expected and it was really a great learning opportunity?
Yeah, usually it doesn't go as the first iteration almost never goes as expected. But I think maybe times when I was actually really surprised, right? And in the fairly early days of Zillow, my tenure there, and this was probably 10, 11 years ago now, we had just launched something we call market-based pricing. So we had moved our flagship premier agent business, where we're selling leads to real estate agents, from a fixed impression price to a dynamic market-based price, so a bidding sort of environment like Google AdWords or something like that. And tested it for a couple of years, iterated on it, and we knew when we launched it that one of the keys was going to be to make sure that agents got the best return on their investment that they could. If the marketplace was going to be based on agents bidding, well, they had to see value for them to raise their bids. And we saw one of the simplest things we could solve at the time. About half of the leads we generated were just never followed up with. It's like, that seemed like a huge ROI problem for agents, right? If they're not following up on half the leads. And my thought was pretty simply like, hey, if we could solve that problem and plug that hole, we'd double the amount that agents would bid on leads, and that would be revenue growth for us. So and also solving a problem for the consumer, because if the consumer ends up not being followed up with, they don't think to themselves, oh, that Remax agent didn't follow up with me. They say like, oh, that Zillow agent didn't follow up. And it's also a drag on our brand. So I thought, really clever solution, killing two birds with one stone. We're going to protect our brand. We're going to increase the agent ROI. And we created this thing called the Connections platform, where we made sure that every consumer, before we sent them to an agent, we would make sure that agent was available to take the call. Pretty simple. Solve the problem, killed both birds with one stone, and agents hated it because we were asking them to change their behavior. And they were used to the lead going in their inbox and then them following up at any point in time that was convenient for them. And what we were saying was, no, the consumer is king. The consumer rules everything. You have to meet them where they are. And so when they want to talk, you're going to be available to talk. And I think one of the things we underestimated was how much agents tailor their workflow, their day, their systems around the way they currently work. And we were asking them to change the way they work for a really good reason. but maybe without enough learning and empathy about how they work. And I think, that 10, 11 years ago, but the big takeaway for me was, we can't just run a marketplace. We have to understand the customers at a really, really deep level, understand their psychology, their behavior, how it affects them. And that's, I think then infused a lot in our product thinking sense.
How do you understand your customers?
I'm a big believer that you have to actually ride along with them. Like as COO, I'm mostly looking at reports, mostly looking at summaries, mostly looking at the results of research studies and focus groups. But I do make it a point to go on market, talk to people, have dinner with them, go to their offices. Have done that multiple times over the years. And while it's anecdotal, the kind of texture and depth you get from that, if you can marry that with the trends and the reports, then I think you get a much more accurate understanding of what's going on than if you're just reading reports.
So what's something you've done more recently building off of that learning?
We launched we've been growing the Zillow Home Loans product for a while now, and we've gotten into mortgage. I'm not sure how many people are aware that mortgage is now one of our bigger businesses. And one of the things that I see that was probably it was the newest area of responsibility that I got when I was promoted to Chief Operating Officer. So I'd mostly focused on the agent business in my career. Last year and a half, I've been on this steep learning curve on mortgage. I didn't know a whole lot about mortgage before then. And, my first thought was, yeah, this is about like rates and prices and affordability. And it didn't really occur to me until I really started talking to agents and loan officers how much this was about trust. And it was about the trust between the agent and the loan officer they're working with. Because at the end of the day, like what you care about if you're an agent is, I'm working with this buyer. We've seen like 15 houses and they finally found the one they want. They can afford it. And this deal is going to go through. And now there's like some holdup with the mortgage and we're not sure we're going to get the financing. We're not sure we're going to get the house. That's like the nightmare scenario for the agent. And they want to know that the person on, at their side with them on this, the loan officer, is going to be someone they can trust, is going to be someone that they can call at all hours. And that level of trust, it's pretty intangible. It's not something that you're just going to get from, a bunch of metrics. It's a feeling that you have about a person. And I think that was a big learning for me to understand how much of the Zillow Home Loans business was going to be based on building trust between our loan officers and agents.
Can you share a particular decision you made based on that aha moment, that learning?
Yeah, I mean, the team really, we have to organize our loan officers in a way to make money for the company, obviously. And one of the things that we realized was that each loan officer just had too many different agents that they were working with. So you potentially as a loan officer might have been working with 30 different agents in our network. And if you're working with 30 different agents, the frequency is not going to be high enough with any single one of them to develop that trust. And, the big kind of leap we took was, well, if we shrunk that down to try to build the trust, the risk we took was that the volume would shrink. Right? Now you're not getting as many referrals from the agents. Would that loan officer be able to maintain the same level of productivity, income? I mean, we weren't just messing with Zillow bottom line, we're messing with someone's livelihood. And so we had to be pretty sure that this bet on trust was going to work out, that we were going to be able to work with the right agents. But that led to another finding, which was the home loans business was only going to work if we worked with highly productive agents. Because in order for a loan officer to make money, enough money to meet their quotas, going from 30 agent relationships down to 8, well, those 8 agents had to be doing more transactions.
I mean, some of the most productive agents in the business are probably flex agents,
Yeah.
premier agents and whatnot.
Yeah.
What percentage of business do the Zillow Home Loans loan officers work with kind of Zillow affiliated agents versus non?
Yeah, the flex preferred. So, we have consumers who come to Zillow who get sent to the loan officer. So, these kind of people who are looking for financing first, and they could be working with any agents. But the ones who are where the consumer starts working with an agent, almost all of them come from our flex or preferred agents. And I think, that was really what gave us the ability to sort of shape both sides of the equation, who the loan officers worked with, and also which agents, because we call Flex Preferred now. The preferred program is it's invite only, and it's performance based, so that we can manage who's in the program and make sure that they meet the bar.
Yeah. So I imagine if I'm in your shoes, like Zillow's a big company. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the industry. There's so much going on. When you think about allocating resources, how do you do that in such a way where you're focused on the right number of things and you're not spreading yourself too thin? How do you think about resource allocation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have to work on a lot of things at the same time. And there are a limited number of resources. And mostly, the scarcest resources typically are engineering resources. So we have a project we want to do, and we need to assign engineering resources towards it. So there's a whole product engineering, marketing design group at Zillow that goes through and sort of prioritizes and which projects get how many resources. But I think the fundamental of it is we think first about the customer problems we want to solve, whether that's for a consumer, so a buyer or a seller or an agent or a broker. And we think about the size of the problem and the opportunity. And typically, if we think that it's something that is widely applicable and has a big impact, then we will prioritize those projects. What's interesting is people may assume that we prioritize it based on the revenue potential. Actually, that happens more at the level of which businesses we decide to get into. So for instance, like if we're going to evaluate going into a business like mortgage or insurance or title, yeah, of course, we're going to look at the TAM and see what the revenue potential is. But when we allocate product resources, engineering resources, we look at sort of how salient is this problem that we're solving, because in the long run, that's what's going to create stickiness for the product, and that's what's going to create the loyalty of the customers and eventually our brand. And so we think a lot about solving problems for customers first. And also because I think we have pretty high confidence that we can be flexible in our business model and find ways to make money. If we're meeting a real need and delivering value to customers, there will be a way to make money off of it. If you start from trying to make money and you don't solve a real problem, then the money tends to disappear over time.
Yeah. When you say customers,
yeah,
who are your customers?
At a product-driven company, we define the customer as the person we are solving a problem for. So if you're on a team at Zillow that works on, say, like the app, the shopping app, and your customer pretty clearly is a home buyer, right? That's the person. And the home buyer never pays us money, by the way. So it's not customer in the typical sense of making the cash register ring, but that's your customer. If you're sitting on a data team that's working on MLS feeds, the MLS is maybe your customer. If you're working, on agent products like most of my team does, then the real estate agent or the team lead or the broker typically is your customer.
Do you think Zillow's a technology company or a real estate company?
At this point, isn't everyone a technology company? I'd answer that question by saying we're in the real estate space and that we are a tech company in that we think about technology first as we solve those problems, right? And so, I guess it's both.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that question.
A technology company in the real estate space.
Exactly.
Perhaps. Yeah. Okay, so back to resource allocation. Aside from Zillow Home Loans, let's put that to the side.
Yeah.
What's another area where the amount of resources dedicated to it has exponentially grown over the past 12 months?
I'd say the broadly define the sell side of the business. So, we launched Zillow Showcase a couple of years ago. And going back to the problems we're solving, probably the number one problem that agents would come to me when I go to events and they'd come in, the thing they wanted the most was, hey, can you generate more seller leads for me? And the problem with trying to generate more seller leads is that sellers don't spend as much time looking at homes as buyers do, obviously. And so it is hard to get the number of page views, impressions, clicks to drive the volume on the sell side as it is on the buy side. So as we thought about reframing the question, because really what they wanted wasn't seller leads, it was seller business, it was sellers. And how do we help agents win on the listing side of the business by giving them products where they can win more listings at the win more listings at the kitchen table when they're presenting to potential sellers. And so Zillow Showcase was born out of that. And that idea was taking some of this rich media investment that we'd made over the last 7 years or so, where we created 3D home tours, interactive floor plans. This is a really cool feature where you can see where you are on the floor plan, see which direction you're facing in the house, and then see exactly what that looks like as a in the 3D space. And when as we invested in the sell side of the business, what we realized was there are lots of things we could do to help sellers win more business. It's not always going to be in the form of leads. And typically it's going to work the way that it always has in real estate, which is the way you get more listings is by using your current listing to market yourself, right? So, you put a sign in the yard with your name on it and you have an open house. And while you're helping your client sell that house, you are now selling yourself to all the people who are walking through and seeing that house. And so Showcase was kind of born from that idea. So we've had a lot more investment in sort of the sell side of the business and the technology that goes in there. And alongside that, I'd say AI, because what people may not realize is that the Showcase product is actually built on a technology called computer vision, which is a form of AI that people won't talk about as much. LLMs get all the love these days. But if you've ever thought about like Waymo cars, self-driving cars, like that's all based on computer vision. That's the technology we use to build these interactive floor plans. So what's kind of cool about it is there's no one drawing these floor plans. You go in with a 3D camera, take photos of the house, and the floor plan is generated by AI. So as we've invested in the sell side of the business and also in AI, we've been able to, unlock, I think, more value for home sellers and for listing agents.
Question on the listing agent. So my understanding is with Showcase listings, it's the listing agent that is front and center on that listing, correct? And then with Zillow Preview, it's the same thing. It's the listing agent who has a coming soon listing that's front and center on the listing. Do I have that right?
That's right. They're front and center on the listing, although the actions that a buyer can take are still based on the buyer's choice. So they can contact the listing agent, so the button to contact listing agent. But if they decide they want to schedule a tour or go see the house, then they get sent to one of our preferred partners.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's where I was going with that. Why? Why did you set it up that way?
Well, it was an extension of our old business. And what I just talked about with this whole connections platform, we've been spending 7 years building this engine, performance management algorithm, making sure everyone's followed up with that. One, serves the consumer, the buyer, and make sure that they get the best outcomes, but also make sure that the highest number of those buyers actually turn into transactions for agents. So a lot of agents think they want the lead, but they don't want the work. And by building the system that allows agents to get the most out of those contacts, it's just highly efficient. We've built it over the years. And what we realize is like, we can't really go back to a world where we're just dropping leads in people's inboxes. That's not what our consumers want. And that's actually not going to work out for the agents either.
Right. I mean, it reminds me of how you started, the story you started with, right?
Yep.
Listing agents might say, oh, it's my listing. I want my leads. I want all the leads.
Yeah.
And then, but then you sit back and you think like, really? Do you really? I mean, I know you want them, but then what? What are you going to do with them? They're just going to sit in your inbox. You're busy doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, we think about like go getting an Uber. Sometimes I might schedule a car to go pick me up and take me some places if I know exactly what's going to happen. But most of the time I'm going to pick up my app and order the Uber, and it's a network of drivers who's now available to pick me up when I need to. And I think that's the way we sort of look at it. The contact agent button, if you really want to contact the agent, you can. But if what you really want to do is see the house, it's a service and it's kind of a transactional thing that you want to do. And we want to enable that on your timeline in the most convenient way possible.
And it seems like the new thing in the past month or so with that is that, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Zillow is willing to share a little bit of the economics with Zillow Preview.
Absolutely.
And back to the listing agent. So yeah, we get it, June, you're the listing agent, but if somebody clicks this other button, it's going to go to our other network of agents because we're thinking about the consumer, right? We want a good experience for everybody. But if that happens, we're willing to share a little bit of the economics with you.
Yeah. And that's kind of a bet on that. Everyone says they want the lead, but really they want the economics. And I think we've already built this engine that gets great economics and meets the consumer needs. So the way Zillow Preview works is if you're a listing agent, who brings us this exclusive preview listing. During that period where it's a preview listing, where it's exclusive to Zillow, if a lead is generated that becomes a transaction for us, one that Zillow gets paid on through our preferred network, we're going to give 10% of the gross commission income back to the listing agent for having brought the lead to us, essentially.
That seems like a big deal.
It's a pretty big deal. I mean, something we've never done before. And I think it's a recognition that, in this, the most important thing to Zillow is our content, right? Because the most important thing is our audience. And the only reason the audience there is there because of our content. Well, if we're going to have exclusive content that is on Zillow first, we're willing to pay for that because we realize that the listing agent who brought that content to us deserves some of that value. And so we're giving that back to the listing agent.
Yeah. You've been at Zillow 15-ish years?
Yeah, I started with Trulia. So if you count those years, since the Trulia acquisition, 12 years with a Zillow business card, I guess, but 15 years on the payroll.
So, I mean, you've been working with agents for a while. What do you think agents really want at the end of the day?
I think it's really different, actually. I think some agents just want to make more money. My particular agent, I know, wants to spend time with their grandkids. So I think, though, it is some flavor of they want a combination of income. They want a combination of freedom and time to sort of do things on their own terms. And they also, a lot of them really, really enjoy the process of helping people find a home, sell the home. One of my close friends is a real estate agent. She used to work at Amazon, and she loves the job. And it's a hard job, but she really loves the job. And I think it's some combination of those three things, which probably is not unique at all to any job. I mean, I think the main reason most people do the job is some combination of compensation and fulfillment, right? And I don't think it's any different, really.
Shifting gears, AI.
Yeah.
Is it hype? Is it real? How do you, go to sleep at night thinking about being properly calibrated on that hype cycle?
Yeah. It depends on what you're talking about. I'd say the AI capabilities are absolutely real. Maybe some of the predictions on what's going to happen are hype. I think what's new is really that, and I mentioned this before with the LLMs. I think with large language models, that's one aspect of AI. It's machine learning's existed forever, right? I mean, the Zestimate was machine learning, but I think why it feels so disruptive or threatening right now is because we've equated our online world so much through the experience of search, the Google search results page and the blue links, and that's how we navigated the digital world, and then then the social media and with feeds, and we kind of get used to this being like, okay, this is the internet, this is the digital world, and I think AI is absolutely disrupting that, because I think once I use Claude all the time, and once I start using asking it questions and realizing that, wow, the depth of understanding that this AI has of me and the way it can answer questions for me and the way it can help me solve problems is very different than the old version of the internet. And I don't think that's hype. I think that is real. And I think people who, at this point, if you're not leaning into learning how to use AI to be more productive, it would be about denying that the internet was going to be a thing 25 years ago. So,
do you see evidence now to suggest that people want to search for homes conversationally?
Absolutely. Yeah. We launched something called Zillow AI Mode very recently, I think last week, to the public. And we've been testing this in beta with a few users. And what we've really been blown away by is the depth of the conversation, how much they get into the reasons they like a home, what they're looking for, what their family is like, whether they have a dog. We start to get so much information. And I think once you have that kind of experience, the map is still going to be useful and the lists are still going to be useful. People are going to use that. But I think the entry point of discussing what you want is going to start being conversational more and more.
How is all of that additional context you're getting from a consumer, a buyer, a lead going to be useful?
I mean, think about the home buying process. It's pretty long and it's kind of unpredictable and it's sporadic. And if you've ever had to buy a home, like probably multiple times you started and stopped and given up. And it feels like every time you're starting from scratch, right? And one of the great things about AI is it has all this context and memory. And so if you're someone buying a home and you looked at a bunch of homes, Zillow always had the saved searches and the likes and the hearts. So we kind of knew what homes you looked at, but we didn't know what you were thinking as you were going through that. We didn't know what you could really afford. And now, there's, with the buyability score that we get, we can also, with the conversational AI, just understand what your situation is in a way that when you come back, you're not starting from scratch again. And we can start to help you discover the homes you need based on something maybe you did 3 months ago.
But this industry is funny because there's this last mile problem, right? At the end of the day, you still need to give the quote unquote lead to an agent, right? Whether it goes in their inbox or you're calling that person first. So say 1,000 times more about me and my personal situation, you still have to get an agent to call me.
I agree. And
right?
I think where that gets better is that, if you stop thinking about it as a lead and it's just a transition from the digital experience to the real world experience, we can make that a lot smarter. Because, when we send a lead over to an agent with a good conversion rate, maybe like 5%, which means like 95% of the time you're doing all this work and it's not going to result in a transaction with you. And wouldn't it be a better world for the agent if by discovering more about the consumer, a higher percentage of the consumers you're working with are actually people who are actually going to buy a home and become a transaction for you? That's less time wasted on your end. And if you think of it as more of a off ramp from the digital world to the real world, and that's when the agent takes over for the last mile, I think there are lots of applications of AI that are actually going to be better for the human agent.
Okay, so it's more of that qualification aspect.
Qualification, yeah. And the better sense you have of the home before you go to see it, the less time you waste looking at a bunch of
Yeah. Maybe qualification that feels less transactional.
Yeah.
Right? It's not me asking like, oh, June, when are you looking to buy? What's important for you in a house?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, the context.
And the context too, because if we could tie the information we get from the Zillow website from the consumer with the CRM that the agent's using, so that now when an agent is connecting with the consumer, it's not just, oh, they looked at a house or they submitted a lead, but here's what this consumer is all about, what they care about. And the agent now can have a better idea of how they can help them.
The CRM seems to be key. Follow-up boss.
Follow-up boss,
and not just for your typical CRM reasons, but if I sit back and think about where the industry is, where it's going, integrating these different services like Zillow Home Loans and the other stuff you're providing, it seems like getting all of that into one system that's intelligent, that everybody is using, is a critical success path.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see in the next year how Follow-up Boss was already the best-in-class CRM when we bought them, and we knew that. And that's why we bought them versus trying to build it ourselves. And but the real promise was what happens when you supercharge Follow-up Boss with all of the data and insights from Zillow, the consumer data that no CRM has. And so we're launching something called Zillow Pro, which is actually going to link so that if you're an agent, it's going to link the data from Zillow into Follow-up Boss, and also actually link the consumer. So there's a feature in there called My Agent, where if you're an agent and you've been working with a client, they're from your sphere, from a PTA meeting or whatever, and they're in your database, you can send an invite now to that consumer on Zillow. And if they say, hey, this is my agent, we'll stop trying to turn that consumer into a lead. We'll just show you. Well, we'll have them come and ask you a question or take a tour with you or co-shop with you. Because what we're really trying to build is the best experience for home buyers and sellers. And it's kind of a bad experience if we know that they're going to use a certain agent anyway,
right,
and we make them a lead for someone else. We're kind of wasting everyone's time. So I think one of the things we can do as we get more intelligent about both buyers and agents, the CRM is key because it allows us to know, to be able to link who the agents are working with and allow the agents to then connect with them on Zillow.
The My Agent thing existed in the past, correct?
Only on leads we generated. So one big change we're making is it existed. If we generated a lead, we'd create that My Agent relationship so that we're not trying to send them somewhere else. Now what we're doing with Zillow Pro is we're allowing an agent to upload and say, well, here are all these clients that I've gotten from my sphere or from other lead sources, and you can create a link.
Why now again? Why did you bring that back now?
I think it's a recognition of how our business model is evolving and becoming more diversified away from leads. And I think if you think about Zillow at some point, maybe last time I was here, um, the vast majority of our revenue came from
Mm.
essentially the buy-side agent commission, right? The leads that we were sending to agents. But as we move more towards preferred flex, and as we move to growing Zillow Home Loans, more of the sell side of the business, I think what we're recognizing, and with Zillow Preview, there's a good example, we're taking some of that, deliberately making less money from our flagship revenue source and trying to create new experiences that are going to fuel new growth vectors for us.
There's so much going on in the industry, a lot of noise, a lot of hype, a lot of entertainment. What's your personal bubble like? Like, how do you decide what to let in, what not to let in, how much to look outside versus not?
Oh yeah, I mean, not just in the industry. Like curating my social media feed to make sure. No, I think my personal bubble looks like I pay most attention to my direct team,
Mhm.
and so I have somebody. I think I have 9 direct reports, and my throughout my workday, my first priority is them and making sure that they have what they need and to make sure that I'm connected with them and that I'm seeing the things that they're seeing. Um, I believe it or not, I don't consume a lot of news sources. The communications team at Zillow will typically tell me what I need to know,
Mhm.
and I don't really sort of chase the hype or the headlines. Largely because my philosophy is always you control what you can control, and the things that happen in the environment. Like I do pay attention to the economy and interest rates and where things are going. And of course, we have a housing forecast, which hasn't looked that great for the last few years. But the only reaction to that is, well, we can try to take more market share. We can try to create
Mhm.
more value. I can't affect any of that. And so try not to spend too much attention on
Yeah. No, that's smart. People ask me for advice on things. I'm like, just stay off the internet.
it
Uh,
as much as possible.
yeah, focus on the things you can control. In my spare time, I do things that are not real estate related. I like
Yeah.
to read. I'm interested in history. Where do you get inspiration outside of the industry?
Oh, I mean, outside of the industry, you know, I am a big consumer of mostly TV shows. And the reason is because it's become that sort of a nightly ritual with my kids. My kids are 12 and 15. So we try to pick something that we watch for like an hour each night and sort of bond over it.
Hmm.
And it's a great timing because I think with prestige television, like the quality of television has gotten to the point where it's not mind numbing, maybe that it might have been 10 years ago. And music, like I'm a huge music fan. Do you typically, if I have my headphones in, I'm not listening to podcasts, I'm listening to music. I spend enough of my 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. day thinking
Hmm.
and using my brain that usually I just like to decompress at the end of the day.
Fantastic. Um, if you now going back to Zillow and work and stuff, I mean, if you had to do it all over again, what would you have started investing in or working on earlier?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because I try not to have regrets, but this is let's see. I think probably as a leader, um, investing more in understanding what really gets the best work out of people. And it wasn't early on, I felt like being a leader and a manager meant being the smartest person in the room and always having the answers. And then you realize like how limiting that actually can be. And especially as you're starting to run a larger organization or a larger company and you can't be everywhere at once. I think that's probably where I would have focused is on the coaching and professional development of my team. I think I've gotten pretty good at it over the years, but it's been a 20-year journey and I'm still learning. So I probably would have benefited from starting sooner.
If you were going to write your past self a little note, like on a fortune cookie, pretty brief, and it goes back in time 5 or 10 years, what would it say?
Um, it would say you don't have to have all the answers.
Hmm.
And I think part of that, one of the things I've learned is, I don't want to call it a trick, but uh, I've learned now I don't have to finish building out the strategy or the document or the thing. I can start it and I can show people what I'm thinking, or I can, even draw a diagram or wireframe and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And what I found over the years is that by leaving the solution open-ended, often the team will come up with a solution that I would not have thought of. Whereas if I was more prescriptive, then they would have anchored to my boss wants this solution, therefore I'm going to deliver this solution. So I think when I don't have all the answers, literally like don't give them the solution. Start them on the thinking, and trust that you'll get better results that way.
All right. I love that. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jun, thank you so much for coming to Boulder and joining. We'll head down to class in a little bit. I'm Mike Del Prete. You've been listening to Context. If you want to hear more of my podcasts or work, you can go to my website at mikedp.com. All right. Thanks.